It's just that feeling in your stomach of, oh my gosh, I'm no longer a kid, right? This is a whole new phase in life, and the excitement, the enthusiasm beyond that. Having spent, the better part of a year with these folks, it felt surprisingly comfortable just because I knew the culture, I knew so many of the people. And also, I was trying to burn into a big learning phase in my career. You can't really go directly into commercial new business development without having an understanding of what you're doing. And one of the things that I learned during my internship the previous summer with the Wood Small Companies was this was a relationship business. And I was self-aware enough to know that I didn't have any of those relationships that were going to turn into business opportunities. So it was going to be really important that I have something unique to understand and create value prop.
In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company, from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun at all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America.
Hi, I'm Joe Deshawn, and welcome to the Corporate Couch with Jeff Palacio. Today, Jeff is interviewing Rick Kahle. Rick is a Senior Vice President of Alliant Insurance Services. He spent 27 years as a producer and president at Arthur J. Gallagher and the Lockton Companies. And he spent 7 years as a business owner, investor, and business advisor with a focus on the Kansas City entrepreneurial startup scene. He is also on the board of Phoenix Family, a highly impactful nonprofit that helps residents of low-income housing communities, and he is a board member of several other volunteer organizations. Let's listen as Jeff talks to Rick.
Rick, welcome to the Corporate Couch today.
Thanks, Jeff. Excited to share some thoughts today.
Yeah, absolutely. We met, it was after you left Lockton. Lori Wiles introduced us. But yeah, excited about getting into your career and how you give back to the community, both from a mentoring perspective and a not-for-profit. So yeah. So here we're recording on March 18th. The NCAA bracket was announced yesterday. So my fun question for you, Rick, is who is going to win the NCAA men's tournament in 2024?
I'm going off the board. I'm going with a 4 seed. The Auburn Tigers are going to shock the world this year.
All right.
My team is the Missouri Tigers. We were totally defeated this year.
Yeah.
But
winless in conference play. Yeah.
Winless in conference play. Well, in conference play, fair enough. Funny, 1 year ago, this past weekend, we're playing Alabama. I think was in the semis of the SEC tournament on the heels of a great year. And how a year can be different. So, yeah. But through that process, have observed some SEC teams that I admire quite a bit. And Auburn's. So I did one bracket so far. I picked Arizona. The next one I plan on the Auburn Tigers winning.
Okay, that's it. Well, a past guest, Chris Jones, not Chris Jones of the Chiefs, but he did predict the Super Bowl, almost had the score exactly right. He actually picked San Francisco to score 22 points. He had 31 for the Chiefs, so the final score is 25-21. So you might want to get in multiple brackets with that Auburn pick. So
good pattern here, being on the podcast. I like it.
Go. Now I might do a couple brackets with Auburn then too. You grew up in Kansas City?
No, sir. Grew up in St. Louis. Went through high school there and came to Kansas City to go to college at Rockhurst, then college, now university, and Kansas City has become home.
Yeah, nice. What was fun for you in St. Louis growing up? What you love doing?
Gosh, sports. We were all about it. Played watched, participated every way I could. 100% an outdoor pet. So growing up, we were the kids who dad had, second whistle meant that dinner was probably being eaten to come inside.
Love that.
Grew up pretty modestly, but one of our perks was I still remember walking up to the pool in the summer that was near our neighborhood. And isn't it funny that, just not that long ago, you could be trusted as a 8-year-old to walk a mile and
Ugh.
to school or to the pool and everything was going to be fine. So just great memories of growing up with family and friends. And we didn't, we were probably on the more modest end of the income spectrum, but boy, we had an awful lot of friends and family and love and caring, and look back just really fondly of my childhood years.
Yeah, it's incredible you say that. I remember my elementary school, I think, was 3/4 of a mile from my house. Always seemed farther when you were a kid, but I think I started walking to school in first grade. I mean,
You would be turned over to Division of Family Services now.
right.
Can't do that at these age, but
Yeah, no,
yeah, that was normal, right? That's what we did.
yeah, and I love that second whistle thing. It's amazing. I've interviewed about 80 guests almost now, and just the amount of people that just left their house, especially obviously in the summer, and kids and played all day, and got called in for lunch and dinner, and this went, and your parents had no idea basically where you were, and it
Yeah,
was
and
fine.
everything was fine, right? You had a group of people that looked out for each other and had the authority/permission to knock us in the heads if needed be. That we just we didn't want to lose the right to go out and play, so that was
Right.
important to us.
Right. So from being from St. Louis, and obviously they're both in Missouri, so Rockhurst College at the time, now university. What was the appeal there for you?
Yeah, I looked at a couple big. I looked at Mizzou and that at that time Southwest Missouri State and Rockhurst. Rockhurst. So I went to Vianney. In the Catholic high school system over there. Rockhurst recruited very heavily. It was a different type option, right? Smaller school, other side of the state. I knew I wanted to go away, but didn't want to go away super far. And I was really curious when visiting what that community might look like. And Jeff, I wasn't a bad kid, but I was influenceable enough that I had my own self-awareness and doubts about going to a great big school as to would I go to class, would I stay focused, or would I have more fun than one should have.
Right.
So when Rockers said that we take pretty seriously you come into class and go into class, that felt right, along with just the entire campus community, and being connected in that way to each other, that level of accountability and connection. Just it felt really good when I came on for my campus visit. Was also considering playing hoops, and Rockhurst was going to give me that opportunity. I chose not to my freshman year, but that was a place I could have considered if I really wanted to play, joining the team in progress. I didn't end up doing that, missed the games, but was able, Jeff, to have a really just balanced career of getting involved in orientation at Rockhurst. Played a ton of intramurals, did the fraternity thing, had just a wonderful, really balanced college, just full college experience.
Yeah, no, they're very nice. Yeah, and I've done some guest lecturing at Rockhurst, and been involved in a couple of their seminars. So yeah, it's a great university. Question, Rick. So, what major did you graduate with, and was that your major when you entered freshman year?
Yeah, so my dad was a traveling salesman, and so I liked the freedom and flexibility and the people side of that. My mom worked for a state farm agent, so I had an idea of getting into business development and then sales management. That's what I went in with an idea towards. So marketing and management was what I studied. I went in with that, came out with that. Probably had accounting as a possibility. And when I was in class and didn't see any of those people in the class that were at the party the night before, I decided, okay, this is these aren't my people. So uh, we went a different route. And of all things, fast forward, Jeff, my first real internship was in the commercial insurance brokerage with a producer or salesperson, internship that nicely combined those two opportunities. And it was through Rockhurst that I got to launch into, my first 27, 28-year career. Was through through the college and through what they call the co-op or internship program.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. Most guests I ask how they got their first job, but obviously what you just said, you got the internship while you were at Rockhurst into, I believe it was Arthur J. Gallagher insurance firm. So how did you get the internship?
One was befriending the person who ran the co-op program. So getting to know her, what was important. She was terrific in sharing. Here's what the companies are looking for. Here's how you prepare yourself. And so I had a mentor that was I'm grateful to for till this day for her guidance. This was a privately held company that Arthur J. Gallagher ended up buying by the name of the Woodsmall Companies. And they and Lockton were the two up and coming Kansas City flavored, privately held family run businesses in town. And boy, I prepped pretty hard for that interview and actually interviewed in between my sophomore and junior year. And they said, we really like you. We're just looking for somebody that's closer to graduation. Please come back next year. And, as a young kid, even sometimes as an adult, you don't know if you're getting tactfully blown off or if this is
Right.
This is real feedback. But I came back next year to find out. And sure enough, same recruiter came. I remembered you. We've got you circled highly. Got picked for that. Had a great summer with them. And rolled into part-time employment while I was finishing my senior year. Nice. Started at 10 hours a week. And Jeff, I was probably working 30 hours a week by the time I finished, and graduated on a Friday and started full-time the following Monday.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. Before we go on to your career, I have to mention, because when we caught up the last time, you were telling me that your frat advisor was a previous guest on the podcast, Sly James, who was a former mayor of Kansas City for 2 terms. He was a partner in a law firm, I believe, when he was frat advisor for you. But incredible person, as you know. But what was it like having Sly James and as a frat mentor? And did you glean any lessons as a 20-plus-year-old at that time?
When I told him he was nuts for doing this and he didn't want to be responsible for our crazy behavior, he just laughed at me. And, it was really neat to see somebody that accomplished in the city to give back to the community, to be a role model, to be available to us. That was one of the number of people that influenced my life to different ways to give back. When you're able to do that. So I found that to be really noteworthy. That Sly was willing to come back on campus, spend time with us, and share his wisdom with us in that capacity.
What I was so amazed by, we met for coffee before he came on the podcast, and you just feel so comfortable with him, and he's just so, I don't know what it is. It's just a presence about him, and he's fully there, fully present, and just a wonderful human being. So, yeah.
And full circle. So in that capacity, all the way to, when he was mayor, and one of my college fraternity brothers, Joe Reardon, mayor of KCK at the time, or, the unified government, along with Sly. I remember being at an annual chamber dinner when we were poaching businesses from one side of the state line to the other. And those two talking to each other, and I said, "Hey, would you two please be the adults in the room here and somehow figure out a way for us to stop lowering our tax base while adding no new businesses as our community switches from one side of the state line to the other?" I love having good people like that who are willing to go into public service and lead. and how complicated that is and how important it is at the same time. So grateful for the slides and for the Joe. And getting back recently, Jeff, skipping ahead a little bit onto the chamber board service, in a recent meeting where Sly is going to help lean into getting the 3/8 cent sales tax renewed to help keep the Chiefs and the Royals in our community. So a chance just a week or so ago to reconnect with him.
Nice.
It's the same every time, right? It's friendly, it's out loud, and it's just a real conversation. And those are things that I just admire in people that can be their authentic selves, nearly 100% of the time.
Yeah, no, yeah, he's definitely a gift to Kansas City and the country, really. Um, yeah, so what? Obviously, you had the internship, but what was kind of the biggest surprise when you were, out of college? You're working full time now. So now instead of on the books for 10 hours a week and you're working 30, you're on the books for 40 and probably working 60. But what was kind of big surprise for you when you know, this is the professional world of insurance?
Yeah, it's just that feeling in your stomach of, oh my gosh, I'm no longer a kid, right? This is a whole new phase in life, and the excitement, the enthusiasm beyond that. Having spent, the better part of a year with these folks, it felt surprisingly comfortable just because I knew the culture, I knew so many of the people. And also, I was trying to burn into a big learning phase in my career, in the commercial side, especially, but you can't really go directly into commercial new business development without having an understanding of what you're doing. So I spent a couple years in the benefits side we had a third party administration group, or with TPA operation, which was fairly unique back then to have that in addition to the consulting and brokerage side of the house. So I could learn the mechanics, the inside and outs of the business, number one. Number two, that was something that was unique, right, that we had that others did not have. And one of the things that I learned during my internship the previous summer with the Wood Small Companies was this was a relationship business. And I was self-aware enough to know that I didn't have any of those relationships that were going to turn into business opportunities. So it was going to be really important that I have something unique to understand and create value prop around. And the TPA operation was important in that, creating that differentiation. So I worked in that for 2 years and asked for the yellow pages. I said, okay, I've got this at least a decent amount of understanding. Let's go. And they gave me that opportunity and just enough mentorship and time and rope to scratch out some wins. And I really loved that part of it. I loved sitting down with clients, learning about their circumstances, seeing if we could fit and help. Probably wasn't near good enough at asking the right questions and listening at that time. So that's something that I had one of my mentors, just square me up, say, you need to become a better listener if you're going to succeed. And having some of those old school producers that didn't have marshmallows in their mouths when they were talking to you, I still remember some of those lessons vividly, and some that I try to share with younger people coming into our business today.
Yeah, what was whether it was a mentor or a book that influenced you? What was a big aha early on in doing business development? I mean, now people are handed lists and lead generation, but you're going back to old school days of, hey, I'm looking up target companies in the yellow pages. So what was some of those type aha moments for you, and who influenced you in those areas?
Yeah, I remember whining one day how hard I was working, and the calls I was making, and the grind that this was to try to kick up some opportunities. And just one of the dear people in my life who's still very involved. He, he says, Rick, you're in sales. Let's not confuse effort and results. we do not get paid by the phone calls we make. You need to figure out a way to attract customers to come join us, and we pay based upon results. And just the directness of that was really helpful. And I've repurposed that advice in all of life, but particularly in business development. There are people that go about things differently, right? So I was able to watch people that were just hammering the phone, smiling and dialing, other people that became true experts in the industry, and others through civic and charitable ways develop their network. There's a lot of different ways in business development that you can be successful, and learning and borrowing a little bit from each one of those people I admired was how I formed my belief pattern and behavior pattern to try to become successful in this business.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal. So you, counting the internship, you were at Arthur J. Gallagher and all its forms because you started with another company that got acquired by them. But so what, you're successful at this point, I'm sure, after almost 13 years. What led you to go to Lockton at that point?
So my boss got promoted to a regional position and asked me at Gallagher to take over the Kansas City operation, which was an awesome experience. I got to be part president, part COO, part finance, part HR. I reflected at one point about a year in, and I said, gosh, I'm spending about a third of my time what I've worked so hard to get decent at, and that's to go find customers and take care of them. And that's really what I'm most passionate about. So a year later, I went back to my boss and I said, hey, I want to go back into production. And to his credit, he said, no harm, no foul. We'll let you do that. I was running into really, really good people who I respected and admired, and Lockton was having a good run over there. And boy, that was such an exciting and yet painful decision to leave my work family that I grew up in to make a move like that. But it was the right move for me and my family at the time to return to a privately held company that was really doing good things for customers in the community. And I felt like I was a good fit. So I went over there into production. Fortunately, was able to get my boss, after my non-solicitation expired, to come over, team back up, help build our national practice. And we had a really good run at Lockton when he came over, and others thought that I'd be a good producer president at Lockton. So my paying job over there, Jeff, was always finding customers and taking care of them. But I also had a good 10-year run serving as the leader of the benefits operation in Kansas City as well, which was much more of a leadership role than it was an operator role. Had really strong COO as a good partner over that. And I believe to this day, I have many more strengths as a leader and as a trusted advisor to clients than I do as an operator. That's really not my skill set, and I enjoy being paired up with strong partners in that regard.
Yeah, where did you get your kind of foundation for leadership? Was it again mentors? Was it books? How did you kind of hone your own leadership principles?
I haven't been a huge reader. I've probably read 10 to 15, 20 sales books. I read a lot of articles, but that just hasn't been me near as much as being in the game and carefully watching good leaders at work. And with all the civic and charitable work I've done, the boards I've served on, the organizations I've been a part of, I have just been super blessed, Jeff, with some really, really good leaders. And I ask a lot of questions, and I watch and observe how they go about tackling those responsibilities, and have just borrowed and tried things on, and have had enough leadership opportunities myself to thoughtfully experiment in different ways of doing things, and have rounded out. We're always still trying to improve and learn, but I now have pretty good basis of what I have seen work to try to execute upon. And so much of that is it's not a Rick show or a Jeff show, right? This is finding really good people, asking them good questions, bringing out the best in others. And that doesn't matter if that's your work job, your charitable job, your civic endeavor. The better job we do, you're barely noticeable orchestrating the band and bringing out the best in the good people around you. And I've been very blessed to be in good organizations that have a lot of good people. And that's just been a ton of fun when you can make sweet music and nobody really even notices how it's happening. because of all the prep work you've done behind the scenes, and all of a sudden the show goes on and it goes well. I get a big charge out of that.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Exec HQ, a C-suite fractional firm providing elite executives for your business. If you're having challenges taking your business to the next level, if you want to augment your leadership team, or prepare your company for increased growth, profitability, and an eventual successful exit, we have seasoned executives from every C-suite position ensuring a perfect fit for your needs and the dynamics of your industry. You will work with senior leaders who like to roll up their sleeves while checking their egos at the door. They can help your business in specific services such as strategic planning, executive leadership coaching, financial management, corporate governance, marketing, sales management, and many other advisory solutions vital to your business success. That's exechq.com. To learn more, go to exechq.com or email Jeff Palacio at jeff.palacio@exechq.com.
Explain. So you're in this, kind of two of the top 10 insurance brokers, 13 years counting your internship with Arthur J. Gallagher, locked in one of the premier companies in Kansas City, beautiful building and plaza area. And then you decide to kind of be an investor / advisor to help the Kansas City entrepreneurial community. So talk about that, because that's a total switch from what you were doing, really.
A lot of people thought I was nuts. How could you leave, positions like that you worked so hard to get into? I'm a bit of an oddball in that regard. I had a great run. It was wonderful. I was so proud of both companies and the things we accomplished, the people we helped, the impact we had on the community. I wasn't quite 50 yet, Jeff, and I feel so blessed to be in a country that provides the opportunities for people to build things and be entrepreneurial. That was kind of my next calling. And so raised my hand at Lockton, said, let's wrap this up in a professional way, and did so 1/1 of 16. Tried to do the best, put our clients and our team in a really good spot. Had friends who were entrepreneurs, and just really wanted to immerse myself into the entrepreneurial space, and made a list of things that I wanted to learn, do, be part of. And spent 7 or 8 years just really knee deep in the entrepreneurial space, investing in early stage companies and funds, serving on boards and board of advisors with an eye towards building something or some things in the future. And I had a great deal of respect for entrepreneurs, but I didn't have a ton of experience because, Jeff, I was focused on the middle market, upper part of the middle market when serving those clients. So my breadth of experience was really people I cared about who were entrepreneurs, and just being close to them and asking them questions. So this was a hugely exciting adventure for me to learn what it really meant to capitalize a business. How do you get your first customers to agree to pilot your offerings? How do you get people to sign on, get excited about, and have faith in you, right, to come along for the journey? So those were amazing experiences that were really helpful to me when I decided to get back into my former business and launch something. Having all those experiences and seeing amazing people teach me how to build that faith and get the people to come join your team and get the first clients to say, yeah, I'm willing to come jump. I feel so much better equipped to do what we're doing now for Alliant in Kansas City as a result of having those 7 or 8 years in the entrepreneurial playpen.
You obviously work for mature companies, as you just talked about, and now you're in that startup space. What was the biggest surprise on what these entrepreneurs were struggling with for you?
The entrepreneur's life is not for the fragile, right? I mean, it's got great upside, but the grit and resilience that is required day in and day out to tackle the problems, to have the resolve to get to those opportunities. So the patterns that I saw, one, you have to have a unique value proposition and understand the problem you're solving. You have to be willing to entice businesses or individuals to give your offering a try. You've got to create proof of concept. You've got to get capitalization around these ideas. The successful ones I saw had formal or informal board of advisors and confidants that they could share confidentially, the good, bad, and the ugly of what was going on, and just day in and day out, keep the eye on the prize and not let a million distractions during the day knock their focus away from the passion and the vision, the mission, to do something exceptional and create value in the marketplace that didn't exist today or solve some problems uniquely. So I have such admiration for the successful entrepreneurs. And I really think, Jeff, that Kansas City will be in no small part a great place to be, to live, to work, to play, based upon the ecosystem that we create for entrepreneurs, because I think that's going to become an increasingly important part of business in the future. I'm hopeful that we will continue to double down on our efforts in this space so that people can launch and build things right here in Kansas City.
I'm going to get back to that point in a second, but so that you're in this investor helping entrepreneurs space in Kansas City for about 7 years. After those 7 years, what was the biggest change in you, having done everything you did in those 7 years?
One was the rekindling of the passion for the business I'd been in. And of course, you kind of kept track with the number of people and what was going on in the industry, right? So while the commercial insurance has property casualty and employee benefits, I spent the 95% of my time in the benefits space. So I would keep track, obviously, of issues and how companies were trying to solve those problems. Part of my entrepreneurial endeavor was focused on engagement and communication and education. And so part of my learnings was we were diagnosing problems, but if employers were not connected with their employees in a really meaningful way, coming up with a different point solution to that was not going to be as effective as if the employer were able to communicate and really connect in an omni-channel type approach that was working for all segments of their population when trying to engage them to focus on whatever was important at the time. So that was a big learning. You're not really an entrepreneur, Jeff, until you make payroll. So my appreciation for all those that wrote my paychecks, while I probably simplified this at times and said, okay, well, the client is the one who's really paying me, you can't help but appreciate everybody whose name was on your check before,
right,
after you sweat to make payroll on a biweekly basis. And just as I said earlier, it's worth repeating, the admiration that I have for entrepreneurs just went through the roof to see how challenging it is to be successful, how much work it is, how many things have to, you got to have the combination of good fortune, but the grit, the resiliency, the positive attitude, just that recipe for what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur was just something I couldn't help but just sit and admire.
Yeah, I'm sure that's amazing. So you jump in the kind of the helping companies that have 5 employees, 10, 11, 30, I don't know, whatever. And then you jump into Alliant Insurance Services, and I believe they have 10,000 plus maybe employees all across the country or the world. I don't know. So what was there any big ahas moving back into, kind of, I'll say your first love, the insurance industry?
Yeah, so I even looked, Jeff, at taking on capital myself and building something. The capital market, when I looked at this a year ago, was super tight. So you come to the realization that it's going to be probably an 18 to 24 month build, and the amount of capital that was going to be required, I was going to, be working for somebody else's anyway. So I decided it was probably better to move over a swim lane and find a company that had the resources, that had the growth orientation mindset, good group of people, good culture, and then was looking for open space in this part of the country to where I could help an established company build out Kansas City / the Midwest. So, being a college kid in the portal for a while, I I had a bunch of conversations, which were super fun to learn about some great organizations. And when I talked to the people and the leadership at Alliant, I felt like I found the comparative there. And while I had some great conversations, and I'm grateful to a number of organizations that offered to join forces, Alliant was the far and away the best fit for what I was looking for. And so I committed mid last summer, and we've been going full tilt since August 1st of last year. And we're having an absolute blast building our team, getting on the playing field, and introducing Alliant to a whole bunch of people in Kansas City that that haven't heard about the company.
So, what has been your biggest challenge personally for you getting back in the game here and achieving the goals the company has set out for you?
Yeah. The biggest challenge is, well, let me start with the positive, if I could. We have had just amazing human beings, wonderful professionals reach out and be curious about what we're doing, what we're building, and have attracted a number of them to come join us to build something really special here in Kansas City. I found that there were 8 really good people in the market, some in the shared service, some on the property casualty, some on the benefits side. So, we've doubled that group. So we're about 15, 16 people now. And Jeff, we're not trying to grow, crazy fast. We're trying to pick off one really good person at a time that fits what we're looking for culturally. First-class human beings, great professionals, care about each other, care about clients, care about community. That part's been the most gratifying and enjoyable part. The hardest part has been in those 8 years, the vast majority of my client relationships have turned over, have retired, which, if you think about it, right, in the C-suite of an 8-year period, including COVID, not necessarily surprising that a lot of your, network from that perspective has turned over. So that's been challenges reestablishing myself in the buying community. The other part is so much of what used to be a less formal process has turned into a more formal process to earn work and develop those partnerships. So it used to be the much larger or public entities or real large organizations were the ones that had to go through a RFP process or something, and that has come down into the middle market. So accordingly, it's taken a little longer to win those first clients, get up and going. So that's been the hardest part, is just having the patience to know that it's coming on the other side of it for somebody that is 100% impatient by nature.
Right. Yeah, because having done a fair amount of business development and trying to add value to people myself, it's always like you can help somebody, but your challenge is helping them see that as quickly as possible.
For sure. And there's a bunch of good competitors in town. One of the things too in my entrepreneurial playpen days was getting to see some of my former competitors through a different light with some of the things I was involved in. And Jeff, there's a lot of good people in the Kansas City area, Kansas City insurance marketplace, who are wearing different color uniforms. It was great to get to know each other without that competitive tension in place. So we're absolutely getting on the field and trying to become relevant and be a disruptor in a marketplace that has plenty of good choices. So we need to be really unique and special in order to be successful.
Rick, let's talk a little bit about, I know you've given back to the community. You've served on various boards as well as been board chairman, Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, United Way, a few others, but you've been 17 plus years with Phoenix Families. Tell us about Phoenix Families and your role over the years there.
Gosh, thanks for asking. It's amongst the 20, 30, 50, neat organizations I've civically and charitably leaned into. This is the one that's causes me to pause and get choked up a little bit because I'm just super passionate about the people that we get to serve who are residents of affordable housing communities. And these are young families who tends to be a single mom and her 1 to 3 or 4 kids who are getting by on very modest incomes. And mom's trying to make it work. We also serve seniors who are trying to live independently on some form of Social Security and a really modest income, try to live independently as long as they can, live connected. And what Phoenix Family does is becomes their advocate and their advisor in so many situations without judgment, just meeting a good person where they are, somebody who wants to try to make themselves or their family's lives better, and try to lean into that person, meet them right where they are and help them get to a place they wouldn't otherwise be able to get to. So I got exposed to this through a dear friend of mine whose organization spawned Phoenix Family. The funding community, Jeff asked, and I ended up getting on the board about a year or 2 years after getting to exposed to the organization. The funding community said, we are not going to support this organization unless you separate Phoenix Family from the spawning company, because no good deed goes unpunished sometimes, right? But they said they've had situations where the benefit that they have provided inured to the host company. So worked to split the organizations apart. And a lot of that was the board leadership, and the board members were with the ARCO companies that had spawned Phoenix Family. So I went from being a board member, wide-eyed, trying to get my arms around who we are and what we do, to request from the chair and the executive director to consider becoming the chair of the organization. And that has been just an amazing, 15, 16-year run in that, and have been able to invite tons of friends to support us, whether that was as a volunteer, serve on one of our committees, to board members. One of those good friends that I invited, Mark Garrett, has been a rock star board member. He's the CHRO at Blue Cross Kansas City. He's been my vice chair for 5 years, and Mark graciously agreed to take the reins and become chair this past January 1st. So now I'm serving as a board member under his guidance. And Mark and I would both tell you the same thing. The leader in that organization is our president and CEO, Kimber Myers-Givner, one of the most amazing human beings and leaders that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And she'd be one that I would put on that list from our earlier conversation, Jeff, of somebody that I've just watched closely how she goes about leading. I borrowed from Kimber quite frequently.
Yeah, no, thank you for your work in the not-for-profit. I mean, it's really special. I think the Kansas City community and all the different ways of giving and the different organization, having worked at United Way, it exposed me to a lot of the not-for-profits in Kansas City. And I served on a startup not-for-profit board, and it meant a lot to me too. I was passionate. My parents were immigrants, so it was helping immigrants in Kansas City fund their process to become citizens. So
can I add one thing real quick on that, Jeff?
Absolutely.
To this day, I still get excited. We go to one of the Phoenix properties, and me and my golf buddies partner up with harvesters. They can bring the food and commodities to the back door, and then we sort it, make it available for those that can come down, the residents, to pick through something that'll help them for a couple weeks. And for those that cannot, go door to door for the deliveries, and still getting on the ground level. I enjoy the board meetings. I enjoy raising funds and doing all the governance, but still in my heart, there's still the one that went to Children's Mercy right out of college. United Way had come in, and he had come into the Woodsmall companies, and there was a loaned executive from Children's Mercy that asked for not only money but for volunteers. I still harken back to that day of being the biggest kid on the floor, on Thursday nights as a 21-year-old.
Wow.
At ground level, right? So I encourage all of your listeners to find things that you're passionate about. One of the great ways to do it is get on the ground and go volunteer and see if your heart is fully involved in trying to help that situation. That's a really good sign that your time and treasure, is deserving of that. If not, I would encourage you to go find something else that meets that standard, because that's really, it's important in our busy lives that it's something that really touches us and moves us to allot the time and resources in everybody's crazy day. If you're going to be able to make the impact that the organization wants you to make as a board member or as a leader.
No, I love that advice, not only for young professionals, but really professionals or people that have retired at any age to go volunteer. It'll make you a better person and obviously have some impact in whatever charity or organization you wish to support. So, well, speaking of advice, if let's go back to your when you graduated college. For those young post-college graduates that are looking for their first job, not lucky enough to have an internship that turns into basically a career, what advice would you give them, Rick, as they're kind of going about getting their first post-college job and starting their career journey?
Starting with the end in mind, it is one of the business books that I did read. When you're going into college, what story do you want to be able to tell at the end of this story that's going to convince an employer to hire you? And what are the experiences? What's your resume going to look like? What are your experiences, your accomplishments, the things you've learned going to look like? I think is super important. And then when you get to that spot, sending out 1 million resumes has, some potential help. But to me, this is all about networking and developing relationships. And just like the one I hearken back to, there were a lot of kids in that co-op program, but I think I had a special place in the heart of the person that ran it because I invested in her and in learning. And I just absolutely believe when employers came in, who are the special kids that you think will be successful, I've got to believe that there were times that my name came out of her mouth. We all have the opportunities as kids growing up to influence other people's parents' situations, get involved in things. What can I do to stand out? And who can I contact that says, Jeff, would you be willing to ask somebody at this company, this is a neat opportunity. I've done my homework. I have something to add. Would you ask the hiring manager or the CEO to pull my resume out of the pile and see if I could get a conversation started? So that would be I think it's about relationships, it's about network, and also about having a meaningful story to tell.
Yeah.
And then the final thing, Jeff, is and kids are getting accused of this, of wanting the corner office and wanting immediacy to this.
Right.
Really understanding my job as somebody coming out of college, starting with a company, is to make that company better, to grow their profits, to reduce their expenses, to grow their revenue, to solve client problems. People that come in that are focused on those things and that ask good questions to help. Not only, I'm not desperately looking for a job, but I, as the applicant, am trying to figure out, is your culture, is your mission, is your business something that fits with me? Those are things that really impressed me versus the kid that comes in and throws up all over you. If I can do this and I can do that and I can do this, they don't take a breath for 20 minutes. That's not near as interesting as somebody that's quizzing me about my company.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, it's like sales. No one cares about your quota. No one cares about your product. And the same thing for a recent college graduate. They don't care you need a job, that you have loans to pay, that your parents want you out of the house. It's what you can do for them and add value. So yeah, I love that advice. The second group is, once they start their professional journey, they're usually individual contributors. They're not responsible for a team of people from an HR perspective. But once they get that promotion and now they have a team of people under them that they're responsible for, what leadership advice would you give them as they begin that journey?
I would start with, when you're an individual contributor, there are opportunities to lead every day. And it starts with doing the right thing when nobody's looking, going the extra mile, working hard, investing in your teammates. There are so many ways that are true forms of leadership, whether they're recognized as such, that I think we can always, each one of us, be honing our leadership opportunities. And then getting that opportunity really needs to be something that is not about me getting additional pay or power, but rather I'm committed to helping us as a team do things better. That's the leaders that we all admire. Is it's truly not about them, but it's how can that person, whether it's leading by example, showing us being the expert in the space, how can that person shift their superpowers to the rest of us to make this team a more highly functioning, more valuable unit? Be thinking about that, right? Is that really do you want the pay? Do you want the office? Do you want the title? Or do you want the responsibility? Which really good leaders are pretty selfless, right? They're constantly investing in other people. They're shining the light on others. They are accepting the blame and responsibility when things don't go their way, regardless of if it was their fault or not. And we have some amazing examples with Patrick Mahomes and Travis and Andy. And I love people were just up in arms about Travis bumping into Andy Reid. A lesser person, somebody not very comfortable with themselves, would have lashed back out, made a big scene. Andy just rolls with it, and he knows Travis is who he is because he's a fiery dude. And of course, Andy didn't want that to happen on the sidelines in front of 80 million people watching. What did he do? He brushed it off both at the time it happened and after, during the press conference where people were baiting him to say negative things about Travis and light him up and throw him under the bus. Instead, he brushes it off. And I'm sure he probably, closed the door with Travis and said, Travis, we just can't do, we can't do that. And Travis probably beat him to the punch. He's got so much respect that Andy has earned that he probably didn't even have to say it. He probably, publicly and in private said, Coach, I screwed up. And I'm sure Travis, being the good leader he is, owned every bit of that. There's just a lot of lessons out loud for us that we can see in Kansas City. Patrick never takes credit for anything that it does. It's all about the team. He's the first one to fall on the sword when something doesn't go well. And we all know a number of times that was not his fault, that the receiver made a wrong read or something. He just owns it and moves on. A leader has followers. These guys that I just mentioned have followers because of how they comport themselves, and they're true leaders.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Rick, thanks so much for coming on the Corporate Couch today. I'm excited what you're going to do with Alliant Insurance Services. Have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Great being with you.
It was so great to reconnect with Rick. I really enjoyed talking to him. He's just the servant leadership mentality, and even though he picked Auburn to win the NCAA men's tournament, and that
you can't win them all.
Yeah, I think they lost maybe in the second round, upset. Yeah. So sorry, Rick, on that one. But it's just a great career, and he was so self-aware at a young age. Like, he knew he needed to stay out of trouble, and he knew he needed to build relationships, which investing, I think he said investing in others so you can stand out. And that basically led him to an internship at Rutgers College at the time, now university. Mm-hmm. And that led to an internship with a large insurance agency. And he made a 28 career in the insurance agency. But now it's a little more than that. We'll talk about that in a second. But and he's in a frat, and Sly James, who was not even mayor of Kansas City at that time, but one of the leading lawyers in Kansas City, and a previous podcast guest on the Corporate Couch, who's just a phenomenal leader, was his frat advisor. I mean, You talk about leadership lessons when you're, in your, 19, 20, 21, 22. I mean, that's phenomenal. And I think the other thing for me on his career, I mean, he spends 28 years with a magnificent career in insurance, then just stops, and starts investing and advising entrepreneurial companies, founders, and learns a ton of things in that space. And now, he's back into the big insurance. So I thought just a lot of different things and how he learned from people. Basically he said, watching and observing great leaders starting at a young age, and then the power of asking great questions. So I don't know. Rick was just really a pleasure to talk to.
It was interesting and kind of a circuitous route in his career, but that just shows the variety that you get when you come to the corporate couch. I'm going to pull out one thing that he said, where he was talking to one of his mentors or bosses or somebody, I can't remember exactly who it was, and he got the advice, you're in sales, so don't confuse effort with results. And I think that is true. Now, he kind of took it on a little bit farther, and I would even take it a little bit farther than that. That is true for more than just sales, right? That's true in life in general, but certainly if you're working for a corporation who expects results from you, I don't know how many times I've been in a performance review, and I would say I did this project, and then I got taken down because of what did that do for the company? What did that generate more revenue for the company? Did that save costs for the company? What was that? And I had to realize that that's the thing that bosses want to focus on, and actually that everybody should be focusing on, and that is what are you accomplishing rather than just what are you doing. I think
you're referencing the time I gave you a shitty performance review. I think that's what you're getting at.
I know, and I've never forgiven you for that. Regulars to the couch understand that Jeff used to be my boss, and then he wasn't my boss, and then he was my boss again, and then he wasn't my boss, and we went back and forth several times. But yeah.
Yes, a great partnership over the 30 years. Actually, so not consecutively 30 years.
Not consecutive. It was on and off and on and off and on and off.
Well, yeah, I think that's it's important to focus on results, and I think a lot of functions that don't really, if you're in sales and marketing, you kind of get the focus on results, and I mean, obviously, sales is all about generating revenue. You have sales quotas. Marketing is a lead partner in that. But if you're working in HR or other functions, accounting, you really have to think about what does drive revenue for the company.
Yeah, sometimes you have to be a little creative to come up with it.
Yes,
but 100%. if even after being creative, if you don't come up with anything, that may say something. It may say that the thing that you're doing, maybe that isn't worth doing. Maybe you ought to evaluate that.
Yeah, at one organization we worked at, I wanted to put a sign on the door that everybody left through, based on the area of the building we're in. How much money did you make the company today? Kind of like Notre Dame's outside going out of their locker room has played like a champion today, and they all touched the sign on the way out. So,
and that's kind of cliche in the movie Office Space, where they had the big sign, "Is it good for the company?" And that was laughable, but all good humor is actually based in at least a sliver of truth. And so there needs to be a piece of truth to that the things that you're doing is actually good for the company, or else you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. The one last thing I want to say about Rick is his work over 17 plus years with the Phoenix family, not-for-profit, just helping underprivileged families, give them a chance to succeed, and supporting them financially as well as other ways. So that it
Good
speaks
stuff.
a lot. Yeah, speaks a lot about Rick. Joe, based on all Rick's great leadership lessons, what advice would you have for our great listeners?
Well, today we're going to go to that great philosopher named Anonymous. And Anonymous one time wisely said, "The moon is actually more useful than the sun, since the moon gives us light at night when it's dark, but the sun only gives us light during the day when it's already light outside."
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Corporate Couch. If you enjoy the podcast, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me next week to learn from another great leader sharing their professional journey and insights.